Hey, Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, this one has been sent to me multiple times. So it was sent to me on X or Twitter, if you like. It was sent via email and on our own subreddit r/marknarrations as well. And it was compiled on the best of Redditor updates, but originally from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit from Throwaway Insane Sis. But it's got a lot of trigger warnings on it, which I'm going to read out. If you don't want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below, but it contains incest, bullying, child abuse, theft, property damage, stalking, emotional abuse and manipulation, infidelity, accusations of infidelity, and attempted identity theft as well. Haven't seen that many spoilers before, so holy moly, I'm not sure what we're getting into here. But it's titled, Am I the Arsehole Here for telling my aunt I want nothing to do with my sister? On a throwaway, since my family knows and stalks my social media. I, 26 female, have been no contact with my sister, Cheryl, 24 female, and mother, 57 female, since I turned 18. Our parents divorced when I was 14. When my mum's constant favoritism and enabling of Cheryl's abuse of me would not stop. My mum excused it as every parent has their favorite, but Cheryl took delight in stealing from me, destroying my things, and using me as a physical and emotional punching bag. My dad, after years of trying to force family counseling, mental health evaluations, family interventions, but my mum kept enabling and at times felt like encouraging Cheryl. My dad treated divorce as a last-ditch effort to try and save what was left of my childhood. My mum demanded full custody of Cheryl in exchange for giving my dad 80-20 of me. It was a rough battle, and he did really try to limit my custody time with mum. At 16, I was able to stay with my dad full-time and only see mum and Cheryl occasionally or at school. I suspect my mum wanted 80-20 of me to keep me around as Cheryl's punching bag. But Cheryl's power over me lessened the instant I had power to just walk away. It's funny, Cheryl seemed obsessed with taking from me. New phone, taken. New tablet, taken. Once we were both in high school and I lived with dad full time, she couldn't blatantly steal from me anymore. Didn't stop her from trying. I had one boyfriend in high school who she tried to seduce, but failed. He told me immediately and was weirded out by it. When I went to college, she e-stalked me and found out if I was dating anyone. I had 2 boyfriends in college and she tried the same thing. Both times they told me about Cheryl's attempts and shot her down. This part might need explanation. Cheryl is conventionally attractive, like from across the room, but since she was a teenager, she has hygiene issues. She showers once every 2 weeks and uses a combination of scented hand lotion and perfume that combines with her BO into a new mega stench versus covering up. My last college boyfriend remarked that when she put her hand on his shoulder, he was immediately grossed out by her nails. When I was in college, Cheryl also attempted to get a credit card in my name, but I had a lock on my credit, courtesy of my father who feared my mum would try this first. So needless to say, I'm not impressed with my sister or my mum. Last night I got a weird call from my aunt, Janice, 64 female, my mum's sister. I haven't talked to this woman in nearly a decade and suddenly she's calling me. She asked me what I heard. I heard nothing, so I was confused. She instantly was like, good, Cheryl needs a place to stay. Your mum kicked her out. I was immediately like, excuse me? No. Janice then kept begging me to let Cheryl stay at my place, at least for a few days, for my mum to cool down. I told Janice that I haven't talked to Cheryl, my mum, or her in years, and that you're all strangers to me. And last time we all talked, you aren't my favorite people. Janice then kept saying, family helps family, and it's just for a few days, it'll be fine. I finally blocked her number, but I did get a confused call from cousins confused that I cut my sister and mum off. As if it happened recently and not almost a decade ago. The cousins from my mum's side rarely talk to me, so they were just as confused as I was and wanted clarification. I'm debating on telling them the details, but I'm thinking if just telling them, it's not their business. But I can't help but think I should have handled the call with my aunt better. Am I the arsehole for how I told my aunt I want nothing to do with my mum and sister? I always think instantly after the end of these stories when, Janice kept saying family helps families, it'd just be a few days, it's fine, etc. It's like, well, Janice, why aren't you helping family in this situation then? I haven't spoken to you in nearly a decade and suddenly you're phoning me telling me I need to take my sister in. Get out of here with that nonsense. I think you did absolutely the right thing in this situation. And sometimes on this channel I talk about a family which I reference as like the sort of mafia family. It's all about family helps family kind of thing that they talk, but then they hate each other at the same time and, abuse each other, sometimes physically, we've seen in the past. And a lot of them are still like this to this day. A couple of years back, I was at one of my family's wedding and one of that family was there. And, she had completely changed. She had separated herself from the family. She said she didn't talk to them no more. I was just so relieved for her talking to her. She was saying that she was telling me some insane shit about them. And I hadn't seen this girl in years. She was one of the younger, so we didn't sort of play with her when we was all younger because, she was probably like a toddler back then. And I hadn't seen her for years and years before that wedding. So when I met her and she was telling me about how insane they all are still, and that she has sort of like nothing to do with them, it was such a weird feeling for me. It was almost like relief for her. But I've seen her a couple of times since, and she's told me a couple of wild stories about that family, which I'll share with you soon, I think. But Opie comes in with her first update and says, talked to two of my cousins over the phone and explained that I've been in no contact with my mum and sister since I was 18. Still saw them both a handful of times, but never interacted with them directly. As suggested, gave Cliff Notes versions of what happened with my sister and mum that made me want to cut them both off. One cousin said, figures, and the other said, makes sense. Aunt sent a message via Facebook Messenger of, had no idea it was that bad. She did, and that she will leave me alone about it from now on. Overall, felt good starting my Friday, until noon today. My husband and I work from home, and we were both surprised when our Ring doorbell said we had someone buzzing the front door. Checked the camera and yep, it's my sister Cheryl with 2 suitcases. Went to the door and kept the screen door closed and locked, but opened the front door. Could still smell her weird BO through the screen door, so her hygiene has not improved since I last knew her. Cheryl tried to go, hey sis, all bubbly and like half my childhood didn't happen. I asked what she wanted. She said her and mum got into a fight. Wouldn't say what the fight was about and asked to stay with me. I said absolutely not, and she started crying. Then she said she didn't want to tell me this, but her and my husband have been having a 6-month-long affair, and that she couldn't hold it in anymore, and that blood still sticks with blood. It was that moment my husband rounded the corner and said, say what? My sister looked confused and asked who the hell the man behind me was, and I almost laughed because I realized what happened. Since Thanksgiving onwards, my husband grew a small beard for the first time. Most of his pics on social were him cleanly shaven. Of course, Cheryl would have no idea what he looked like with the beard. I said, that's my husband, and she tried to recover. It was sad and pathetic. I simply said bye Cheryl and closed the door. 10 minutes of her continually buzzing the ring and knocking, pleading, and she finally left. Called both cousins and asked what the hell this is all about, and why did my mum kick Cheryl, her favourite child, out? One cousin only knew bare bones, but the other knew the details. When my parents first divorced, there was this guy my mum brought in almost immediately, who I call Scumbag Tom. Him showing up and the start of the divorce felt highly suspect. But he was always a weird guy that I never liked being around. I did ask my dad if he thought mum cheated on him with Tom, and he said Tom was the least of his worries and the lowest of his priorities when it came to the divorce. Long story short, Cheryl slept with Tom, mum found out, kicked Cheryl out and Tom stayed, swearing Cheryl tricked him somehow. Just Cheryl staying super classy and mum found the one thing she wouldn't tolerate Cheryl doing. God, I'm glad I cut these people out of my life. I love it when people have nicknames for the people in their stories like Scumbag Tom. I mean, it's not quite the same ring as Swan Man, but that guy was a hero. Anyway, OP comes in with update 2 and says, "This is a strange and developing situation. Last 12 hours have been a roller coaster. I talked to my dad again today, had him visit and told him what Cheryl had done, and Dad sat down on the couch and started laughing and crying and shaking his head. I was really worried because I was afraid he was having a medical issue. He finally caught his breath and told me the family secret. During the divorce, my mum was apparently extremely vicious and even attempted to keep me full time. I wasn't told this. My mum went as far to even claim I was not my dad's child, and she knew who my father was and would use this to get full custody. Dad was undeterred. Even if I wasn't his child, he raised me and he wasn't going to leave me in hell because of that. Paternity tests were ordered for both me and Cheryl, and I was Dad's child. Cheryl was not. Cheryl, however, did match the person my mum bought to be sampled. Scumbag Tom. Dad was still going between chuckling and sobbing for a few minutes while telling me and my husband this. Then there was silence, which felt like it went forever. I finally asked if Scumbag Tom knew. Dad just nodded. I asked him how he felt about Cheryl. He said you can't just turn off being someone's dad, no matter how shitty they turn out. I had my husband take my dad to the guest bedroom after he said he needed to lay down a moment. Around noon, my phone started ringing. It was an unknown number, but I figured it was Cheryl. I picked up and yep, Cheryl. She was again begging for any sort of help. Stay with me or money for a hotel, anything. I was tired and I admit I wanted to hurt her. So I told her. I told her who Scumbag Tom was to her. She was quiet and then begged me to tell her I was lying. I just hung up. I told my husband and father what I did, and my dad just started that weird sobbing chuckle again. My husband, however, said we should probably call my aunt to let her know what I just told Cheryl, in case Cheryl becomes unstable and at least someone will be alert for it. I do feel bad that I dropped this on Cheryl as a way specifically to hurt her. I tried justifying this isn't even a tenth of the hurt she'd given me, but hurting someone doesn't feel good the longer I sit with it. So OP updated again and said posting here in my profile for now. Don't know where this would belong, honestly. At everyone's advice, I did call my 2 cousins and we had a real conversation. Whoever said my mum and sister controlled the narrative with that side of the family was right. According to my cousins, my dad was painted as a low-life cheater, and I as a dropout drug addict that went man to man. Literally only had 4 boyfriends my entire life. So when my sister was kicked out, my aunt suggested she stay at my place. The cousins were confused. Wasn't I a druggie that couch surfed and was unemployed? Aunt apparently came up with a story that I speed ran adulthood in 6 months of getting clean, an online degree, a job, home and husband. Now both cousins never really liked my mum or sister. They just figured that if trash called me trash, I must have been super trash. I did tell them the truth about Cheryl and Scumbag Tom, and both were disgusted with everyone involved. They made sure the family has been sufficiently warned. Now, the next part apparently happened late last night, and I'm getting this secondhand. Cheryl apparently stopped back at Mum's and the 3 of them got into a big argument. Things were broken and thrown against the wall and the cops were called. Cops showed up. Mum tried to get Cheryl kicked out, but apparently Cheryl's legal address is Mum's house, so the cops told her she can't be kicked out. Same with Scumbag Tom's legal address. So as long as no one is actually assaulted, the cops didn't care. I'm now making a habit of putting all calls from unfamiliar numbers straight to voicemail. Got 3 from new numbers last night. 2 was Mum. First her crying and pleading for her to apologize to me and begging me to understand. Second was her screaming and cursing to the point of it devolving into noise. The third was Scumbag Tom, starting with him going, "Hey kiddo," deleted that one before it finished. Going to take the Ring doorbell footage, the past legal case of the credit card, the voicemails, the texts, and info from my cousins and get some legal orders in place now. It's all just trash. Trash, trash, trash. And OP comes in with one more update and said, been getting messages for updates to this, so here we go, and shares the link. I mentioned on my profile that I cleared up the narrative about me to my cousins. Mother and sister spun a tale that I was a hot mess, couldn't keep a job, slept around, did drugs, and couch surfed. When my sister was kicked out, my aunt decided to suggest Cheryl stay with me, which made my cousins confused. Wasn't I a hot mess? Aunt then made up a story that I got my life together, got clean, a degree, career, house and a husband in 6 months' time. Cousins were skeptical, but they thought that since my mum and sister were trash, if they called me trash, I must have been super trash, so they kept their distance away. That's since been cleared up. For the most part, the cousins wanted to stay away from the epicenter of drama bombs. The next part I heard in part from two of my cousins. Cheryl decided to head back home, and her and mum got into a big argument, and scumbag Tom decided to jump in. Cops were called, everyone's addresses were verified, and the cops' attitude was, since no one was assaulted and no one is allowed to kick anyone out, and left. I've been getting calls from all family members now. Mum, Cheryl and scumbag Tom go straight to voicemail, and I'm collecting as much of it as possible. I've been sending it to the police. My husband suggested we retain a lawyer to better handle this, which we will be doing in the next couple of days. Aunt is acting very apologetic and keeps claiming she didn't know the abuse was intense as it was, and thought problems I had with Cheryl was stupid sibling stuff, but she said we shouldn't cut Mum and Cheryl out of our lives just yet. No one else on Mum's side of the family is willing to lend any help or support, except for Aunt. I am, however, getting more calls from cousins, second cousins, and other members of Mum's family wanting to reconnect now that they know the truth. Sort of not sure if I should even dedicate any time to them. They didn't lend my father or I any support during the divorce or afterwards. Part of me understands that it's because my mum and sister spun a hell of a narrative, but at least according to my cousins, her side of the family thought Mum and Cheryl were trash anyways, but still associated with them. I might reconnect with my aunt's kids, the two cousins, since they approached me when this whole mess started with confusion and asked for clarification, not outright trying to browbeat me into accepting my sister into my home. There is no way I'd be putting up with that kind of shit in my life. That'd be no contact with all of those people. Life is too short to be dealing with that kind of shite, right? But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. And our next story is going to come from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit. Doesn't have an update as yet, but I saw the title and I thought, ooh, that could be a bit spicy. It's from NoCoat7393 and says, am I the arsehole for not picking up my phone on vacation and leaving my tenant, her mum, and my mum to deal with the cops for a couple of hours? I rent my basement suite out to my mum's best friend's daughter, Sally. I knew her growing up and I used to babysit her. The basement has two means of escape other than going into my area. It is fully up to code as an in-law suite. There is no reason for anyone to go through it into my space. I went on vacation and left my door to the basement dead-bolted. 3 days into my vacation, I get an alert on my phone that there is an unauthorized event at my house. I look at the video, and it's my mum opening the door for Sally's mum. They freak out when the alarm goes off. Usually, if I need my mum to get into my apartment, I will give her a temporary code. It is always the same one because she gets confused by tech. But I have to activate it beforehand. I cannot do it retroactively. The only choice would be to call her and give her my personal code. I check the cameras in the house and strangely enough my house is not on fire. I didn't leave the faucet running, there is no emergency. This is where I might be the arsehole. Once I saw they were just fucking with my area for no good reason, I put my phone on airplane mode and went back to the party. Maybe 90 minutes later, a concierge at the resort came and said I was urgently needed on the phone. My dad has written down my whereabouts and they called the front desk for me. I excused myself and went for the call. I asked my mum what the emergency was. Why was she getting me out of my friend's wedding reception? Was my house okay? Was my dad okay? She very brusquely told me to shut up and talk to the cops and the security patrol. I talked to them and apologized for wasting their time. I asked them what the emergency was that brought my mother into my house. They handed her back the phone and let her tell me that her friend did not want to sit in the basement while she was visiting her daughter. So my mum agreed to come let them use my area and it would be a secret. I asked the security company to please lock my house back up and take my key from my mother. She started to protest but I hung up. I enjoyed the rest of my trip and my dad has agreed to pay any fines or penalties that come from the false alarm. Sally's mum wants her to move out. That's fine by me. I don't need a tenant and was only doing it as a favor. Sally is almost apologetic, begging me not to kick her out. She said that she didn't even know what our mums were up to until the alarm went off. My mum is pissed that I wasn't available immediately to get them out of trouble, and she is furious that I won't give her back my key. She thinks that I did it on purpose. I'm not sure how she thinks I forced her to break into my home without permission. So am I the asshole for making them sweat until they got a hold of me and taking my key back since I can't trust her now? Now, it's not the asshole from me, you know. They're getting what they deserve in this situation. You know, they went into your place, they was using your area without permission, etc, etc. It's just a not the arsehole and taking the key back. You know, your mum can't be trusted anymore. It's as simple as that. You take Sally's word that she didn't know any of this, you know, it's up to you. I think I might trust her in this and say, just like, your mum's not welcome into this house anymore for what she's done here. And see what response you get from that, if you've had no issues or anything like that previously. But what do you guys make of this situation? What would you do if you was OP? Would you let Sally stay? Would you not? What about the mum? Would you ever let her have the key back again? I think I already know the answer to that, but I'm always interested in your comments. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.